In some of my recent work on digital innovation, I've been writing about a phenomenon that underpins a lot of the digital innovation that is sometimes captured in words like crowdfunding and online democracy and cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And the term that I use is horizontal trust. Now, vertical trust, in opposition or in contrast with horizontal trust, is often the more traditional forms of organization, management, and control that we've very much got used to. So, if you look at how digital innovation has recently been disrupting banking, you find a shift from vertical trust to horizontal trust. And it was actually in recent years because of the banking crisis where trust broke down because of a range right across the world of scandals around corruption and lack of transparency and things being said that were not actually being done in banking. And some of those banks have had to be rescued, and others are paying back at, the consequences of their behaviour. So we used to trust banks. The nature of a bank was trusting banks with your money. Instead of keeping it under your pillow, you put it in a bank, and the deal was that they invested your money and they were able to make a profit, but they kept your money safe. And the banking crisis, and also the use of wider financial institutions that have been accused of avoiding paying tax, and investing in areas that they were not supposed to, has led to a collapse in what was traditionally called vertical trust. So vertical trust at the simplest level is you want a loan from your bank, and what you have to do is you have to go up the hierarchy. You might go into a branch of the bank if there are still any left in the physical world, and you go in there and you ask for a loan, and it may be at a certain level that the person in that bank, the bank manager, is able to allow a loan, but that's still you asking kind of upwards for permission. And often the person you speak to, the cashier, will have to go up to their next line in management to get a bit of permission released. For higher levels of financing, they sometimes have to go beyond the branch and up higher. Now, that's quite a traditional, simplistic view, but that's really how vertical trust works. And it happens in lots of other ways too, where essentially, whenever you want to transact, for example, if you want to send or receive money, that still has to be approved in a vertical way by somebody in a higher authority. Now that's increasingly also being done automatically, but it's still that not at the horizontal level that you and the person or organisation you want to deal with can happen at the same level. There has to be some sort of higher approval, and that works when there's very high levels of trust, as perhaps there traditionally were. But that breakdown of trust has led to innovation, particularly in the digital world. Not only because of those frauds and those behaviours that led to a breakdown of trust, but there has also traditionally been a number of people in the world who don't want to be in hierarchical relationships with people who are often higher up, earning more money with more authority. And that democracy, that democratization, that flattening of hierarchy has a whole literature about it. So on the one level, there's been this kind of push towards the horizontal, towards power with the people, but also it's been because of those recent events where trust has broken down vertically. So the innovation around something like the development of cryptocurrencies, which are based on blockchain technology, which is essentially the idea of a horizontal system where the community on the same level is able, through the digital innovation, to have a high degree of trust and security, verified transactions happening. And often with anonymity too, because vertical trust often was about revealing your details to people higher up. This can be an anonymous transaction, guaranteed, where one person or organisation can send money to another, and that is verified through the technology itself. At the same level, because it's the community, the dispersed community, that actually, you could say magically, but of course there is software and algorithms behind it, that is able to a high degree of confidence to allow those transactions to take place without vertical approval. So Bitcoin, which is one of the cryptocurrencies, has been growing in value because it's enabling people around the world to send and receive and trade at the same level without the need for hierarchical vertical structures, which can also bring down cost as well. Now, if you Google that, if you research that, you'll find that the jury's still out on how secure and trustworthy that is, with recent hacking scandals. But still, a lot of cryptocurrencies are growing because of the belief in the ideological reason to be horizontal, which is we no longer need these vertical hierarchies, but also the idea that also things like privacy and anonymity go with that, but also the idea that these are more verifiable, verified, trustworthy transactions. And of course, then that has led to a movement around the idea of what if other things can be horizontal too. And that's where things like crowdfunding have happened, where instead of going up, kind of seeking permission for funding from investors and funders, having to fill in forms, and there's also been some accusations around how fair that is and whether that's corrupt too. Is that we have an idea for a new product and we can crowdfund it at the same level from our community, from our peer group. And crowdfunding, crowdsourcing also, where we can get ideas and input, and we can vote. And in some countries, including the UK, you can now have an online petition which you instigate, and when it gets a certain number of signatures, a question can be asked in Parliament. But there are lots of examples of how petitions have led to change, which are at that vertical level, because the power of a dispersed community that grows and grows and expresses its views. And so that collaboration happens horizontally, and a lot of innovation has been going on in that field. Now, the technology that underlined, I suppose, the first big experiment in horizontal trust, which were cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, for example, that technology has proved very applicable to other areas. And as you start to look into what blockchain is about, it's not an easy thing to explain, but at the headline level, it is where the software itself, the platform itself, through a dispersed community and through what is kind of like an open ledger that everyone can get access to, so nothing is hidden from it. Every virtual penny is accounted for and visible and trustworthy. That then can be used to verify identity, to verify the provenance of wine or cheese, to enable other forms of resource to be sent and received by other people. So through something like smart contracts, as they're called, which are digital contracts activated using blockchain, somebody could activate their will or send some art via a smart contract which is activated and not in the hands of any individual or organization higher up in the hierarchy with more authority. And this is just the beginning. Currently, there's a lot of research going into it. There are a lot of experiments, but blockchain could well underpin in different forms, even as it innovates and develops, all kinds of ways that even government is run and how we run our lives, and even things like the Internet of Things, securing our privacy, securing certain things that we trust in will be happening more horizontally than vertically. And so at the wider level, horizontal trust doesn't only use blockchain, you could even do horizontal trust physically. And actually the whole notion, for example, on a TV quiz show like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where you can get the audience to vote, and you take more trust in the crowd than you would in an expert that you'd phone. There's just one example of how we can trust at the horizontal level as well as, and maybe as an alternative to, vertical trust. So a lot of digital innovation at the moment in that space is very much around horizontal trust. Not all, but quite a lot.